I never thought I would be that guy, the one whose wife cheated on him. It always seemed like a storyline from a bad soap opera or a cautionary tale that other people told, far removed from my own reality. My wife, Jenna, and I had what I thought was a solid marriage. We met in college, both passionate about education and the difference we could make in young lives. We built a life together, filled with laughter, ambition, and dreams of leaving our mark on the world as teachers. Things started to feel off after I received the Teacher of the Year honors. It was a huge achievement, and I remember Jenna being so excited for me at first. But as time went on, she became distant. I brushed it off, thinking it was stress from her own job. Jenna taught fifth grade, and the demands of the classroom can be overwhelming. I wanted to support her, so I focused on my own work, thinking things would balance out. But the signs were there if I had been paying attention. She started coming home later, claiming she was grading papers or attending meetings. I noticed she was on her phone. More, texting late into the night. The intimacy we once shared dwindled. Nights that used to be spent curled up on the couch together gave way to her retreats into the bedroom, where she would scroll through her phone instead of sharing her day with me. I began to feel like a stranger in my own home. Then came the day that turned my world upside down. I had just finished a long day at school and decided to surprise Jenna by picking up dinner. I thought a nice meal together would help reignite the connection we had lost. As I approached our house, I noticed Jenna's car parked in the driveway, which was normal, but something felt off. I walked in to find the living room empty. The silence was deafening. I headed to the kitchen and grabbed my phone to text her when I heard voices coming from the guest room. My heart raced as I crept down the hallway, adrenaline pumping in my veins. I could hear her laughter, and then a deeper voice responding. A shiver ran down my spine as I recognized that voice. It belonged to Mr. Thompson, my teaching mentor. He was the one who had guided me through my early career, the one who had celebrated my achievements with me and shared invaluable insights about teaching. The realization hit me hard. Jenna was in our home, laughing, and probably having sex with the man I respected most professionally. I could hardly breathe as I stood frozen in the hallway, the weight of betrayal settling heavily on my chest. My mind raced as I processed what I was hearing. I knew I had to confront her, but part of me wanted to turn around and leave to escape the reality that was crashing down around me. But I couldn't. I had to know. I pushed the door open, and there they were, tangled in the sheets, caught in a moment that would unravel everything I knew. Jenna's eyes went wide, shock freezing her expression, while Mr. Thompson scrambled to cover himself with the blanket. I felt a surge of anger, sadness, and disbelief. It felt like someone had punched me in the gut. I wanted to scream, to throw something, but all I could manage was an incredulous laugh. "Really, Jenna, my teaching mentor?" I spat out, anger consuming me. I could see the panic on her face, and she quickly sat up, trying to regain her composure. "Sam, it's not what it looks like," she protested, but the defense felt weak, almost laughable. "Then what is it, Jenna? Because it looks pretty clear to me," I countered, my voice shaking with betrayal. She scrambled for excuses, claiming it was a moment of weakness, that it didn't mean anything, just a one-time thing. I could see Mr. Thompson, who was usually so composed, now sweating and flustered, trying to gather his clothes and dignity. The scene was a surreal mix of a nightmare and a dark comedy. In that moment, I felt like I was watching a train wreck in slow motion. Emotions swirled within me: anger, confusion, and a deep sense of loss for the life I thought we had built together. Jenna's frantic attempts to explain only deepened my sense of disbelief. She went on about how I had been so busy with my accolades, how I had neglected her. I wanted to laugh at the irony. I had just been honored for my dedication to my students, for being the very teacher I thought would inspire young minds. And here was my wife, who was supposed to be my partner, blaming me for the very thing that should have brought us closer together. "Is this what you think love is, Jenna? Lying in bed with my mentor?" I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls, shaking with a mix of rage and heartbreak. I wasn't sure if I was angrier at her or at Mr. Thompson, whose betrayal felt like the stabbing of a knife into my back. Her response was a babbling mess of half-hearted apologies and nonsensical justifications. You were so caught up in your own success. I felt abandoned. The words dripped with bitterness, and I could hear the blame hidden in her voice. It was easier to deflect than to admit how wrong she was. I was stunned. How could she twist this around on me? I was the one standing here, witnessing the unraveling of everything I believed in. I had trusted her, and she had shattered that trust in the most spectacularly cruel way. Mr. Thompson finally found his voice, trying to interject. Sam, but I cut him off, my fury boiling over. You don't get to explain yourself. You're the last person who deserves a voice in this. I couldn't even look at him. It felt like I was staring at a snake in the grass, a supposed ally now turned enemy. Jenna jumped up, her hair wild and her cheeks flushed. Just listen to me for a second. Maybe we can work through this. Her desperation tugged at something inside me, but I was too far gone in my anger to see it at that moment. As I stood there, struggling to comprehend the magnitude of my reality, I felt like I was losing a part of myself. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was about betrayal on multiple levels. As an educator, I had built my career around trust and integrity. Now, both my marriage and my professional life felt compromised. You think I can just forget this? I said, my voice trembling. You think I can just go back to pretending everything is fine after seeing you two together? The hurt welled up in me, a tidal wave of emotions crashing over the facade I had maintained. Sam, please, she pleaded, stepping closer, but I stepped back, needing distance from someone who had shattered my world. There was a time when I would have welcomed her touch, but now it felt foreign and unwelcome. Get dressed, both of you, I ordered, my tone colder than I intended. I need you both to leave. The silence that followed was deafening. The gravity of the situation weighed heavily in the air, suffocating us. Mr. Thompson, still in shock, hurriedly pulled on his clothes, and Jenna's eyes looked desperate, pleading for understanding. There was none to be found in my heart. As they both scrambled to gather their things, I felt a strange mixture of empowerment and despair. I had been wronged, and yet, without a clear plan of action, I felt lost. I watched them, two people I had once respected, now reduced to strangers in my home. After they left, I sank down into the living room couch, my mind reeling. The weight of betrayal settled heavily on my chest. I wanted to scream, to cry, but the emotional turmoil left me paralyzed. Instead, I sat in silence, replaying the moment over and over, trying to make sense of it all. With each moment that passed, I felt the anger begin to recede, replaced by a dull ache of sadness. I had dedicated years to my career, and now I was faced with the reality that my home, my sanctuary, had been violated. I was filled with questions that had no immediate answers. I felt the sting of humiliation, the bitter taste of betrayal, and the overwhelming sense of loneliness. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple outside my window, I knew I had to make a choice. I could either wallow in despair or find a way to take control of my life again. The betrayal had shattered my trust, but deep down, it ignited something fierce in me, a determination to reclaim my life and my purpose. I decided I wouldn't allow Jenna's actions to define me. Although I was hurt, the fire within me sputtered to life, ready to confront this new reality. I had dedicated my life to education and integrity, and I wasn't going to let this betrayal drown out the passion I had for teaching. But first, I needed to confront the emotional storm brewing within me and figure out how to move forward from this. I needed to reclaim my narrative and decide what the next chapter would look like. In the days following the confrontation, I felt like I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions that I couldn't quite control. The initial shock of Jenna's betrayal had given way to a haze of anger mixed with confusion. I went back to work, putting on a brave face for my students. They didn't need to see their teacher unraveling, but inside I was like a storm, thrashing around with thoughts of mistrust and heartbreak. Jenna tried to reach out multiple times. Texts flooded my phone, each one more desperate than the last. "I'm so sorry, Sam. Please let's talk." Or, "I can't believe I did this. I love you. I want to fix this." But each time I ignored her messages, knowing that nothing she could say would take away the hurt or restore the trust that had been shattered. I needed space to think, to breathe, and figure out what I wanted. Then came the phone call that pushed everything to a tipping point. I was sitting in the teacher's lounge, sipping a cup of coffee, when my principal, Mr. Reynolds, walked in. He was a no-nonsense guy who ran a tight ship, and I respected him. I was surprised when he pulled me aside, a serious look on his face. "Sam, we need to talk," he said, his voice low. "Is everything okay?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. He sighed. "It's about Thompson. I just got wind of some rumors about him and Jenna." My heart dropped. I felt like I was living in a nightmare that just kept getting worse. "What rumors?" I demanded, already knowing the answer. The weight of his words sat heavy on my chest. "There are whispers about his professional conduct. I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I want you to know we're looking into it." It was like a punch to the gut. Suddenly, Mr. Thompson wasn't just my mentor who had betrayed me. He was a liability to the entire teaching community. I felt a rush of conflicting emotions: anger, a sense of betrayal, but also an odd sense of vindication. If he had crossed professional boundaries, how could I ever respect him again? "Thank you for letting me know," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I knew the school wouldn't tolerate any inappropriate behavior, especially from someone like him. But the thought of Jenna being involved in something so scandalous made my blood boil. After Mr. Reynolds left, I sat back down, my mind racing. I couldn't shake off the feeling that this was all too much. I had to confront Jenna, face the reality of not just her betrayal but the implications of Mr. Thompson's actions. I decided it was time to stop avoiding her. I texted Jenna, telling her we needed to talk face to face. I chose a public cafe to meet, not wanting the confrontation to escalate into something worse. When I arrived, my stomach churned with anxiety. I spotted her sitting at a corner table, fidgeting nervously with her hands. "Sam," she said, her voice barely above a whisper when I approached. We sat across from each other, and I could see the tension etched on her face. She looked different, more fragile, perhaps realizing the gravity of the situation. "I'm so glad you came," she started, her eyes pleading. I put my hand up to stop her before she could ramble on with her rehearsed lines. "Jenna, we need to be real with each other. You've lied to me. You betrayed my trust, and I can't just pretend that's not the case." She opened her mouth to respond, but I continued, "And now I hear rumors about Thompson. This isn't just about what happened between us. This is about trust in our professional lives." "I know," she said, her voice cracking. "I've regretted it every single day. I never wanted to hurt you, Sam. I messed up." I was lost and confused, and I thought someone would understand me, and he did. "I thought it was harmless." "Harmless?" I echoed incredulously. "You think sleeping with my mentor is harmless? You have no idea how much that hurts. You were supposed to be my partner, someone I could trust." Tears welled in her eyes, and I felt a pang of empathy. "I know, and I hate myself for what I did. I was just feeling so insecure, and I thought you were moving on without me. I got caught up in the moment." "Caught up in the moment," I repeated. "You threw away everything we built, everything we had. I poured my heart into this relationship, and you threw it all away for a moment of weakness. How am I supposed to get past that?" Her sobs filled the space between us, breaking my heart further. "I'll do anything to fix this, Sam. I swear. Just give me a chance." "Do you really think I can just erase this from my mind? I can't trust you anymore, Jenna. Maybe you didn't think about what you were doing, but I can't pretend like it's all okay now." The weight of my words hung in the air, and I could see her visibly shrinking. I finally took a deep breath and added, "I just don't know if I can keep doing this. I need time to think." Her face contorted with regret, and I could see the fear in her eyes. "Please don't say that. I love you, Sam. I don't want to lose you. Let's go to counseling. I'll do anything." "Counseling? How can we even start that when I don't even know if I can trust you to be honest with me anymore?" I stood up, my heart heavy. "I need space, Jenna. I need to figure out what I want." I turned to leave, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt a sense of clarity wash over me, mingled with deep sadness. I had confronted Jenna, but I realized that this was only the beginning of a long, complicated journey. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing. I needed to start reclaiming my life and my path, even if it meant confronting the darkness that had settled in my heart. As I walked away from the cafe, I felt a mix of hope and dread. I had taken a step toward clarity, but the road ahead would be filled with difficult choices. I was determined to find a way through this storm, no matter how daunting it felt. In the weeks that followed that tense cafe meeting, the reality of my life began to settle in like a heavy fog. I moved through my days in a daze, trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy at work while fighting the emotional turmoil that raged inside me. The whispers about Mr. Thompson's conduct began to circulate among the staff, and I found myself caught in an awkward limbo. Some colleagues were supportive, while others were oblivious, treating me as if nothing had changed. Every time I saw Mr. Thompson at school, I felt a mix of disgust and betrayal. He had been the one I looked up to, the one who mentored me through my early career, and now, the very name that had once brought a sense of pride now made my stomach turn. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but I hesitated. Part of me wanted to expose him for what he had done, but another part of me wondered if I could bring myself to drag my private pain into the public eye. Jenna continued to reach out, desperate for a response. She sent me texts, left voicemails, and even tried to catch me after school. Each time I felt a pang of guilt. I remembered the good moments we'd shared, the laughter, the plans, and the dreams we had built together. But then the memories of betrayal would wash over me, and I reminded myself of the hurt I had endured. One evening, as I sat on my couch trying to distract myself with mindless television, I received a text from Jenna that struck a chord. "I miss you, I miss us. Please, let's try to work this out." The words hit me harder than I expected. I felt a wave of longing and sadness, coupled with anger at what she had done. I didn't want to miss her. I didn't want to miss the love we had. But how could I reconcile that with the reality of her infidelity? I made the decision to meet with her one more time. I needed clarity for both our sakes. We agreed to meet at a small park near our home, a place that had once been a sanctuary for us, where we'd shared countless walks and talks about our dreams. When I arrived, I found her sitting on a bench, staring at the ground. She looked different, fragile, almost lost. My heart tightened at the sight. Even with all the hurt, I could still see the woman I had fallen in love with. "Hey," I said softly as I approached. "Hey," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. She looked up at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I don't know what to say," I continued, sitting beside her. "Just say you'll give me another chance," she pleaded, her voice trembling. "I know I messed up, but I'm committed to making this right. I'll go to counseling, I'll do whatever it takes." I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "Jenna, it's not that simple. You say you want to fix this, but how can I trust that you won't hurt me again? I know I've broken your trust and I can't take that back, but I want to show you that I can be better. You mean everything to me," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Do you really think it'll be that easy? I can't just forget what you did. I can't pretend that the last few weeks didn't happen," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. I was on the verge of breaking down. "I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to let me prove I can change. I love you, Sam. I want my life back with you," she said, reaching out to take my hand. I hesitated, feeling the warmth of her touch, something I had missed. But the memories of our last encounter came rushing back. Cold and hard. "You said those exact words before. How do I know this time is different? Because I've had time to think. I was so caught up in my own insecurities that I let them dictate my actions. I was wrong, and I know it." She looked me in the eye, her gaze earnest. "I want to be the partner you deserve." We sat in silence for a moment, both of us lost in our thoughts. I wanted to believe her, but the fear of vulnerability loomed large. Trust once broken is an uphill battle to rebuild. "Let's say I do give you another chance," I said, my voice steady but cautious. "What does that even look like? How can we move forward from this?" "I think we should start with counseling," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I need to understand why I made those choices, and you need to express how I hurt you. It'll help us both." I nodded slowly, weighing her words. "Okay, I'm willing to try counseling. But it will take time, and I can't promise that things will be the same." "I understand. I'm ready to fight for us," she said, her eyes brightening with hope. Despite my reservations, a flicker of hope ignited within me. I wanted to believe that we could work through this, that we could reclaim what we once had. But I also knew that healing takes time and trust isn't easily restored. As we talked about the next steps, I realized that this journey wouldn't be easy. The path to healing would be filled with hurdles, and I was fully aware that I'd have to confront my own feelings of anger and betrayal. It was a risk, but perhaps it was a risk worth taking. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park, I felt a mixture of trepidation and hope. I didn't know what the future held, but it was time to take the first steps toward rebuilding, not just my relationship with Jenna, but also my own sense of self. Whether it would lead to reconciliation or separation, I had to trust the process and take it one day at a time. I stood up, offering my hand to Jenna, feeling a sense of determination blooming within me. Let's take that first step. Together, the days turned into weeks as Jenna and I embarked on the rocky road of counseling. I won't lie, it was one of the most difficult things I've ever done. Walking into that therapist's office felt like stepping onto a battlefield, armed only with my vulnerability. Each session forced us to confront raw emotions, anger, sadness, regret, all laid bare for the world to see. Our therapist, a kind woman named Dr. Martin, was a lifeline amidst the chaos. The first few sessions were filled with awkward silences and emotional outbursts. I often found myself clenching my fists, fighting the urge to bolt from the room. Jenna would break down, crying and apologizing, and I would feel the weight of resentment and sadness on my shoulders, threatening to crush me. "Why did you do it?" became a recurring question. Jenna's answers varied from blaming her insecurities to claiming that she felt disconnected from me. I tried to understand her perspective, but it was hard to view her as a victim when I was the one left shattered. "Sam, I never meant to hurt you," she would plead, her eyes pleading for understanding. I was lost and confused, and I thought it would make me feel better. It was a stupid mistake. "Stupid doesn't even begin to cover it," I would respond, trying to keep my voice steady. "You didn't think about what you were doing to us. You didn't think about how much I trusted you." The sessions took us through a gauntlet of emotions. One moment, I'd find a flicker of hope as Jenna worked to express her feelings. The next, I'd be drowning in anger, remembering the betrayal that had shattered our lives. Dr. Martin guided us through the process, asking questions that forced us to confront our own truths. I began to realize that my own insecurities had also played a role in our disconnect. I had been so focused on my career, on the accolades and recognition, that I had inadvertently neglected to nurture our relationship. It was a hard pill to swallow, especially when I was still grappling with Jenna's infidelity. As the weeks passed, I found myself oscillating between hope and despair. There were moments when I felt we were truly making progress, but other times, the shadows of betrayal crept in, reminding me of the fracture that existed between us. I often left therapy feeling exhausted but also slightly uplifted, like we were laying down the first bricks of a shaky foundation for rebuilding trust. I started to notice subtle changes in Jenna. She was more open about her feelings, more willing to listen to my concerns. I could see her genuine remorse and a fierce determination to make amends. Yet, despite her efforts, I struggled to fully let go of the pain. One evening after a particularly intense session, I walked home in a daze. The air was crisp, and the city lights twinkled like stars in the darkening sky. I reflected on the progress we had made, but also the weight of the unresolved issues still looming over us. I had to confront the reality that rebuilding trust was a long, grueling process. That night, I decided to do something I hadn't done in weeks. I pulled out my journal, a habit I had abandoned in the wake of Jenna's betrayal. I began writing about my feelings, the anger, the sadness, the confusion. It felt cathartic to pour my heart onto the pages, and in that moment I felt a sense of clarity. As I wrote, I realized that I needed to reclaim my sense of self beyond the confines of my marriage. I had become consumed by the betrayal, and while it was important to work on our relationship, I also needed to focus on my own healing. That meant engaging in activities that brought me joy, surrounding myself with supportive friends, and rediscovering the passions I had tucked away during the storm. I began to reach out to friends I hadn't seen in a while. A few of them were aware of what had happened and offered support. They reminded me that I was deserving of happiness, regardless of the tumult in my marriage. I had been so focused on Jenna's actions that I had forgotten to care for myself. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to go for a hike at a nearby nature reserve. The moment I stepped onto the trail, I felt the weight of the world lift slightly off my shoulders. Nature had a way of grounding me, of reminding me of the beauty that still existed in life. The crisp air filled my lungs, and the sound of rustling leaves felt like a balm for my soul. As I walked, I contemplated our counseling sessions, the progress we had made, and the challenges ahead. I thought about how I had allowed Jenna's betrayal to define my existence. It was time to take back control of my narrative. I could still work on our marriage while also nurturing my own spirit. When I returned home later that afternoon, I felt lighter somehow. I approached the evening with a newfound sense of purpose. I called Jenna and suggested we take a weekend trip, just the two of us, to give us a chance to reconnect outside the confines of our routines. She was ecstatic, and her enthusiasm brought a smile to my face. As the trip approached, I felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Would we be able to enjoy our time together, or would the shadow of betrayal linger over our heads? Regardless, I was determined to approach it with an open heart and mind. The drive to the cabin was serene, the scenery around us shifting from the hustle and bustle of the city to the tranquil embrace of nature. When we arrived, the cabin was warm and inviting, decorated with rustic charm. I took a deep breath, hoping this getaway would serve as a reset, a chance to reconnect and rediscover the love that had brought us together in the first place. As the evening wore on, we sat on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Jenna turned to me, her eyes shimmering with hope. "Thank you for bringing us here. I know we have a long way to go, but I want to make this work, Sam." I nodded, feeling a flicker of warmth in my heart. "So do I, but it's going to take time. Trust isn't built overnight." "I'm ready to do the work," she said earnestly. With that promise hanging in the air, I felt a sense of renewed hope. Perhaps this trip could be the beginning of a new chapter where we faced our challenges together, not as adversaries but as partners committed to healing. I didn't know what the future held, but at that moment, I felt a glimmer of possibility. We would take it one step at a time together. The weekend unfolded beautifully, each moment spent together helping to mend the fissures in our relationship. We took long hikes through the woods, sharing laughter and stories, and for the first time in a long while I felt a sense of peace. The fresh air cleared my mind, allowing me to focus on the present instead of the past. One afternoon, while we were lounging on the porch, Jenna turned to me with a serious expression. "Sam, I've been thinking a lot about our sessions and everything we've gone through. I want to take responsibility for my actions. I owe it to you to be completely honest moving forward, no matter how hard it is." I appreciated her willingness to confront the truth. "I think that's important, Jenna. Honesty is going to be key for us as we try to rebuild. I know I hurt you deeply, and I can't expect you to just forgive and forget," she said, her voice steady. "But I want you to know that I'm committed to making this work. I love you, and I want to fight for our relationship." I felt a warmth in my chest, genuine, heartfelt sentiment that reminded me of the love we once had. "I love you too," I replied, realizing that, even amidst the pain, there was still a bond worth fighting for. But I also recognized that love alone wouldn't fix everything. As we spent more time together, I began to see the glimmers of the woman I had fallen in love with. Jenna was making an effort to communicate openly and to show me that she was committed to our marriage. We tackled difficult conversations head-on, exploring the fears and insecurities that had contributed to her infidelity. We even set up regular check-in sessions for ourselves, where we could discuss how we were feeling, what was working, and what still needed attention. It was a way of practicing vulnerability in a safe space, and I felt it was helping us both. By the end of the weekend, I felt a shift in our dynamic. There was tenderness in the way we interacted, a newfound respect for the commitment we were making to each other. We had acknowledged the pain, but we were also actively working to build a future together, one where honesty and trust would be at the forefront. On the drive back home, I reflected on how far we had come in such a short time. There was still a long road ahead, but I felt hopeful. We were both willing to put in the work, to face our demons together instead of letting them divide us. When we arrived home, the reality of our life awaited us, the bills, the responsibilities, the day-to-day grind. But I felt more equipped to handle it, knowing that we had made strides in the right direction. I was determined to not let the past define us. As the weeks turned into months, the process of rebuilding continued. There were good days and bad days, but the key was that we were both committed to navigating the journey together. I learned that healing isn't linear. It ebbs and flows, and sometimes it bumps into old wounds. But through it all, Jenna remained steadfast in her commitment, and I found myself slowly letting go of my anger. Jenna and I started engaging in activities that reminded us of why we fell in love in the first place. We revisited our favorite restaurants, took dance lessons, and explored new hobbies together. Each experience helped us create new memories, reinforcing the idea that we were building a fresh foundation while honoring the past. I also focused on my own growth. I started pursuing interests that had taken a back seat: painting, reading for pleasure, and even reconnecting with friends. I realized that while my marriage was important, so was my individual happiness. Finding that balance became a crucial part of my healing process. As I look back on those tumultuous months, I can see how they transformed me. The betrayal left scars, but it also taught me resilience and the importance of self-care. I understood that I had a choice in how to move forward, either to wallow in bitterness or to learn and grow from the experience. Eventually, we found ourselves at a point where we could discuss the affair without it overshadowing our relationship. Jenna expressed her regret, and I shared how her actions had impacted me. But now, instead of anger, I felt a sense of closure. We had faced the darkness together and emerged stronger. In time, the trust between us rebuilt itself, brick by brick. We learned to communicate openly and honestly, and our bond deepened in ways I hadn't expected. I found myself falling in love with Jenna all over again, not despite what had happened, but because of the strength we had found together in the aftermath. Ultimately, I came to realize that relationships are not defined by perfection, but by how partners handle imperfections together. Love, when nurtured through respect, honesty, and vulnerability, can weather even the fiercest storms. As I sit here, reflecting on this journey, I hope that anyone reading this takes away one key lesson: the power of resilience and commitment. If you're facing a similar situation, know that healing is possible, but it takes time and effort from both partners. Trust is not rebuilt in a day, but with patience, honesty, and a willingness to grow, it can flourish once again. Jenna and I are still on this journey together, and while the road may still have its bumps, I have faith that our love will guide us through. We have emerged from the shadows, ready to embrace whatever the future holds together.